So, this one time, I stumbled upon something in our basement that kind of blew my mind. You know how houses have those little nooks and crannies that you kind of ignore? Well, in our basement, there's this old wooden door up near the ceiling, like, tucked behind some dusty boxes and spider webs. It wasn't like a door you use every day, no handle, just this rusty old lock on it. I had never even noticed it before, honestly. But that day, I was messing around down there, trying not to trip over my little sister's scattered toys, and my eyes just landed on it. So, of course, I had to know what was behind it. What's an old locked attic door hidden away in your own home, right? It's like something out of a mystery novel or a creepy movie. I tried asking my parents about it later, like, hey, what's up with that door in the basement? Why is there an attic up there anyway? Mom just gave me this half smile, as if she didn't want to get into it, but it was Dad's reaction that really caught me off guard. He went from zero to serious in about 2 seconds flat. His face shifted from relaxed to this tight, almost guarded expression, and he said, that door's better left closed. Don't worry about it. And that was it. No explanation, no jokes, just a strict, leave it alone. Like, whoa. Usually, Dad's the practical kind of guy, not the dramatic cloak and dagger type. So my curiosity instantly skyrocketed. What was the deal with that locked attic door that made Dad shut down like that? That night, I could hardly sleep. I kept thinking about that door, wondering if it was just old junk Dad didn't want us digging through or something else entirely. And then, just when I was drifting off, I heard it, this faint noise like creaking and shuffling coming from above the basement. It wasn't the house settling or pipes, it was more intentional. Like something or someone was moving up there in the attic. I froze, then tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe a raccoon or something sneaking around. But it didn't sound like a raccoon, at least not the usual kind. It was slow, careful, almost like someone pacing. It made the buried questions I had about that door even louder in my head. What was Dad hiding? Why was that attic door locked up tight and off limits? And if someone was up there, what did that even mean? I didn't get any easy answers that night, but I knew one thing for sure. That locked attic door was a secret waiting to be cracked open. And, well, secrets in a family home usually never stay secret for long. Living in our house felt like sharing space with a tiny fortress of quiet layers. Layers my family moved around in without stirring too much dust. Dad, for instance, was a man of few words, not the brooding, silent type, just practical to an extreme. Like if a hammer could fix it, he'd fix it, or if talking didn't solve it, he wouldn't waste time. I always respected that about him, but when it came to this attic door, the usual Dad stiffened up like you'd caught him sneaking cookies before dinner. Mom, on the other hand, wore curiosity like a favorite sweater, soft, gentle, and warm. She noticed the shift in Dad too, but instead of pushing, she'd just shoot me these little sideways glances when I asked about that door. Like she was rooting for me to figure it out but wasn't ready to spill the beans herself. I got the feeling she knew more than she let on but was treading carefully. And then there's my little sister, Ellie. A whirlwind of energy and questions, constantly buzzing around like a little detective in training. She's got this knack for getting herself into tight spots, not because she's reckless, but just because her curiosity is way louder than her caution. It wasn't a stretch to imagine her trying to slip past Dad's hands-off warning, though honestly, I felt like I had the better chance of cracking the attic door than her dodging his radar. The thing is, that attic door wasn't just a weird relic we'd always been told it was off-limits, no exceptions. Dad's tone always carried this weird warning beneath it, like the words were laced with some unspoken consequence. It wasn't just about keeping out dust or pests, it felt like a line you didn't cross in the family rulebook. Then there were the neighbors, Mrs. Past. Cartwright next door, an older lady who looked like she wandered out of a different era, had this habit of dropping cryptic comments whenever I brought the topic up. Things like, old houses have a way of holding on to their secrets, or sometimes the past isn't as buried as we think. She had this smile, the kind that made you wonder if she knew something she wasn't sharing or if she just loved the idea of mystery for mystery's sake. One afternoon, while passing by her garden gate, she paused and said quietly, "Your dad's a quiet man." Quiet men often carry the heaviest shadows. Just be careful poking around. Her words hung in the air, half a warning, half an invitation to dig deeper. I could feel the stakes rising. Was this attic door just the threshold to an old family storage jammed with dusty photo albums and forgotten holiday decorations? Or was it something heavier? Something Dad was trying to keep buried, maybe even from us? The way he locked eyes with me when I asked, the way Mom's smile faltered just a tick, and the way Ellie kept casting her own curious glances. It all made the house feel smaller, tighter, as if the walls themselves held their breath around that locked attic. The mystery gnawed at me, but more than that, it made me wonder about all the things families don't say out loud. How some secrets aren't just about hiding facts, but about protecting people, even when it means shutting out the ones you love. And so, every time I caught a hint in my parents' eyes or a glimmer in Mrs. Cartwright's smile, the question kept growing. What was Dad really hiding behind that door? After a few days of poking around, trying to piece things together, I finally decided I had to do more than just guess. That attic door wasn't going to open itself, and honestly, the longer it stayed locked shut, the noisier the mystery felt in my head. So, I started looking for ways to get in: tools, old keys, anything that might help without raising too many alarms. I tried the obvious first. I dusted off the cobwebs, inspected the rusty lock, and fiddled with it like I'd seen on some YouTube tutorials. But the lock was stubborn, as if it were daring me to try harder, to keep digging. It made this faint clicking sound at first, then just gave up on me, as uncooperative as Dad when I brought it up at dinner. Which, yeah, I did. Several times. Every time, Dad would shoot that look, half warning, half exhaustion, like he was tired of me chasing shadows. One evening, when I asked if he had ever been up there, his jaw clenched hard enough I thought he might grind his teeth down to nothing, and he said, "Some doors are locked for a reason. It's best if you don't unlock this one." Then, just to drive that point home, he stood up abruptly and left the room, like shutting down the conversation physically was the only way to make it stick. Mom tried to smooth things over like she usually did. She said something like, "Your dad's just worried, that's all. Sometimes we keep things locked away because we want to protect the people we love." Her voice was soft, but there was an edge to it, like she wanted me to understand, but also to stop digging. But of course I couldn't stop. It was like the door itself was daring me to break its silence. And then, one afternoon while I was shifting some boxes near that door, Ellie came barreling down the stairs with a handful of things she'd found tossed around. She held up this tiny, odd-looking trinket, a small metal keychain shaped like a compass, tarnished and worn. "Look at this. It was just lying here," she chirped, clearly excited. "Could it be like a clue or something?" I took it, examining it closely. The compass was faded, the needle stuck pointing somewhere between north and, well, probably somewhere else entirely. But what caught my attention was the engraving on the back. Some initials, JT. The moment the compass was in my hand, I got this weird sinking feeling, like I'd just touched a piece of the puzzle long buried. Who was JT? Could it have something to do with the attic door, or what was behind it? That same evening, restless and burning with more questions, I found myself at Mrs. Cartwright's gate again, clutching the compass like it was some sort of talisman. She noticed it right away, her eyes narrowing with that cryptic smile I dreaded and loved all at once. "So, you found a piece of the past," she said, voice low like she was sharing a secret meant only for me. J.T. was someone who once lived with a heavy heart, a man who left a trail of stories, none of which were quite simple. Your family's history runs deeper than you think, and sometimes the things locked away aren't things you can just open without stirring the shadows. Her words crawled under my skin. I wanted to ask more, but she just tilted her head and said, "Be careful whose footsteps you follow, and remember, some secrets choose to stay locked." Walking back home, the compass pressing cold in my palm, the weight of her warning stayed with me. I felt drawn between two worlds, what I wanted to discover and what I was being warned to leave alone. And then, that night, just when I thought the house had settled into its usual silence, I heard voices. Low, urgent, drifting from the basement, right below that attic door. Dad's voice, clipped and tense. And then Mom's, soothing but firm. Then a sudden crash, a sound sharp and unmistakably human. Heart pounding, I crept to the basement stairs, hesitating on the threshold. For a moment, the house seemed to hold its breath. What was happening behind that door? And more importantly, what had I just stepped into? The next morning, the house felt different. Like it had exhaled a sigh after holding its breath too long. I wasn't sure if it was relief or exhaustion, that creeping kind you get when something big finally gets pushed from shadows into light. I found Dad in the basement, standing by that stubborn, locked door, a toolkit at his feet. I barely slept, and honestly, I was half expecting him to tell me to forget the whole thing one last time. Instead, he looked at me with a flicker, maybe a flicker of resignation, or maybe just tired acceptance, and said, "All right, let's see what you've been so curious about." We worked side by side in silence, turning rusty screws and wresting the lock free. When the door finally creaked open, a rush of stale, dusty air hit us both, like the past exhaling after decades. I peered up the narrow wooden stairs into the attic light, and Dad took a breath, finally breaking the quiet. Inside was everything you'd expect from a forgotten space. Old trunks, faded photographs carefully wrapped in cloth, and letters tied with brittle ribbons. But what really caught me were pictures of a man I'd never seen before, a younger version of Dad, but there was something else in his eyes, a kind of desperate hope I'd never noticed. Dad sat down, tracing his finger over a worn photograph. His name was James Turner, that's me, more or less, before I became the dad you know. "These things," he waved at the dusty boxes, "are remnants of a life I tried to leave behind. Some mistakes, some dreams, and a whole lot of regret. He told me about a chapter of his life no one had known, the part before Mom, before our quiet suburban house, about choices that forced him to shut doors he wished he could open too. The attic, he said, held memories he wanted safe but didn't want to live under every day. The compass, JT. Those initials. I realized they belonged to Dad's own past self, a man who carried burdens he didn't want passed down but somehow did anyway, through silence and hidden doors. What struck me most was how Dad spoke. Not with shame, but with a complicated mix of hope and apology. For all the years he stayed quiet, it was clear he wanted a fresh start with us, even if it meant locking away parts of himself. Mom came down, gentle and steady, sitting beside us as if claiming space in that part of the past for herself. Ellie peeked in a moment later, her eyes wide, caught between the thrill of a secret revealed and the seriousness of what it meant. We didn't solve every question that day. Dad's past, his secrets, they'd always be a part of who he was. But it felt like by finally opening that door, we'd opened a path to understanding, not just about a locked attic, but about the weight people carry in silence. It made me wonder how many of us carry our own locked attics. What happens to families when the doors stay shut, and what changes when they finally open? Some secrets shape us, even if we don't always see how. As the afternoon light filtered through the attic window, dust motes dancing like small, silent witnesses, I felt that familiar knot of curiosity unwind just a little. Maybe some doors don't just hide the past. Sometimes they hold hope quietly, waiting for the right time to be found. And maybe somewhere in your own home there's a door like that waiting to be opened, whether you're ready or not.